Hey everyone, welcome to Women Seeking Wholeness. I'm Cherie Burton. This is a podcast for people who long to feel, express, and be who they truly are. Today I was just feeling really called to, first of all, I haven't done a solo episode for quite a while. But this topic of emotional wellness, what does it mean to be in harmony with yourself emotionally? What does it mean to be emotionally healthy? This is actually something I've spent my entire career exploring. My background is in psych. I've worked in clinical settings. I've done about as much as you can do with an undergraduate psych degree. And honestly, I'm glad I didn't go on and get advanced degrees just because I've gone more the holistic mind-body route. However, there's a spiritual component to emotions that I wanted to talk about today and what emotions actually are on the spiritual level. I'm really in it right now. I'm working with my shadows. I'm working with polarity in my body. And every time I'm working through something, I want to go ahead and regurgitate it to y'all and teach. And the people that I bring on as guests, I mean, it's uncanny. The people that I attract into my program who ask to be guests or people I find who have intriguing content, it's uncanny that they are speaking out what I'm processing internally. So I hope this can be that for you today. Feelings are your teachers. Feelings are different than emotions. And that's the first thing I want to share. Feelings are different than emotions. Feelings inform through, I guess you could say, really deep intuition. Maybe you'll get sensations and vibrations in your body, and they're informing you of something. They're teaching you something. They're showing you something. Emotions do that too, but emotions are less mature. Emotions are like children, and feelings are like the parents or the teacher. So these emotions are raw. They're wild. They're unchecked. They're spontaneous, and they're very, very reactive. You could say energy in motion, right? A lot of people say emotions mean energy in motion. And that is true. They carry energy. They have a charge to them. What's interesting about it is the charge is a lot greater based on the amount of trauma that's carried as that informational molecule through a chemical expression through the brain and parts of your body of that emotion. So it's through allowing the expression of that emotion and noticing it behind, the presence that you are behind it, which is the feeling piece, which is your consciousness. This feeling piece is pure, it's undiluted, it's pure presence. You're able to move through the emotion while remaining conscious. And what that means is you're not in fight, flight, or freeze. Some of you may have heard these three terms used interchangeably. It's when you have a fear response in the body that originates in different parts of your brain. We'll just say the amygdala being one of the deep limbic structures where this is really impacted. When you are triggered by something in your environment, and sometimes this comes out of the blue, right? But you get triggered by something, it's filtering through that part of your brain to make sure you're safe, to maintain safety for you. And so an emotion will come up simply as a reaction through your subconscious, and it doesn't have wisdom with it, right? It doesn't have understanding. It's just a messenger. It's just showing you something. But our feelings behind the emotions, they carry the solution. The emotions are the reaction, and they carry that charge, and the feelings are like, hey, stay present. Stay in your body, stay with this sensation of what's happened. So usually the emotions express powerfully when we feel like we just don't know what's going on. We don't have control or an understanding of the situation. And because 90% of your behavior is driven by these subconscious reactions or these subconscious memories and emotions, you will have an energetic reaction, which fuels a chemical reaction. So it's all happening on the subtle level, and you're not consciously making this happen. And that's why we can't beat ourselves up for it. But here's the clincher. You have two choices when you are experiencing a heightened emotion. A little child part of you, a heightened response. You can kind of do the process or do what we call the work, capital T, capital W, by going within, asking, what am I to do with this? What is this showing me? Breathing and being conscious, identifying where you're feeling it in your body, that whole somatic process of experiencing an emotion and identification and just observing, right? And being with it. That's one choice. The other choice is just to go completely unconscious and to just let it take over and let that child, if you will, to use that child analogy, just letting that child run amok. So remember that feelings and emotions are perceived quite differently in the body. When you are in a genuine feeling, let's just say a pure consciousness state, usually you'll feel resonation, often in the heart, sometimes in your lower chakra, like your womb area or your second chakra, just below your belly button, sometimes in your solar plex area, which is that highway between your second chakra and your heart chakra, wherever. I mean, we're all very different. Sometimes you'll get a visual in your mind or a strong perception in your womb, wisdom, or gut area. So a lot of people talk about the whisper of the spirit, the whisper of the soul, trying to get through with this higher way of responding once these emotions come up. There will always be that. There will always be a way for that to express healthily, and your body wisdom will alert you to how that looks like. So if we're always in reactive mode, we can't tap into that strong intuition. We're going off our knee-jerk reactions. And by the way, none of this, I've not mastered this. In fact, most people haven't. And this is the task of life, is working with these really strong natural impulses. It's just part of our human makeup. It's part of the paradox we hold. But when you get presence with your emotions, and when you are the feeling behind them, and you can hold consciousness and stay grounded, you're going to be able to work through that in a way that gives you, it will be very empowering. You're going to either get some gentle nudging to know like the next step or some kind of calm reassurance. But either way, whatever impulses you're getting in those feeling states, it's going to be the higher way, if you will, for you. And these emotions, they're innocent. They're like children who are just innocent. They're just coming up as energy forms from your subconscious. It can be like a child or a baby or a toddler throwing a temper tantrum. If you've ever been in a trauma state, your higher brain functioning is not at work. You're literally dumb. You're not analyzing your behavior. You're not often in control of it, in the sense that, especially if it's a really, really strong trigger. So again, this is like goals. What I'm saying is to be the presence behind that. The neural patterning and the looping that we do and the swirling that we do emotionally is part of the human experience. The goal, or I guess the way to guide yourself through this, is to not let those emotions become so strong and reactive that they grab hold of your whole being and throw you out of alignment and off your center. Emotions can be so overpowering that we become afraid of them, which is interesting because you get in a fear loop. One of your emotions may be fear-based, and you're so afraid of that emotion coming up that you go further into fear. The real goal or task is to just allow them, because the more we repress them or swallow them down, all they want is to be seen. They're seeking expression. And when you have if you could see, like I'm talking with my hands, if you have, I'm literally holding one hand up to be like your feeling present state, and the other hand is the emotional state. They're very separate. So, holding one hand behind the other and saying, hey, be the presence behind the looping, behind the knee jerk, behind the temper tantrum, behind the fight, flight, or freeze. There needs to be a part of you, and there is a part of you who's observing this. And I want you to, or invite you to, just really be aware next time you get triggered, to seek for that presence and to guide this child, because your feelings are your teacher piece of you, your master piece of you, your soul presence. It's really a beautiful tool that can inform a lot of your subconscious beliefs you're reacting to that you're not aware of on the conscious level. It's like, oh, here comes this temper tantrum. Here comes this really strong reaction. How interesting. And then just getting really, really curious with it. Remember that our emotions inform us. They don't teach us. They show us. Feelings are different. Feelings can bring us back to alignment, back to resonation in the heart, back to the soul centering, back to who you actually and authentically are. So they transcend emotion because they're not body-based necessarily. They are soul-based. So they transcend the thinking mind. They're completely connected to the divine, to God, your higher self, your soul, spirit, however you want to define that. They can come from these feelings of how to act and how to be and how to have that presence is literally like your energy field outside your body. You may not always be able to say, oh, my feeling is here in my body, or often it will be kind of a resonation within you. So you'll know that it's feeling and presence based, but sometimes it can actually be outside of your body. And that's not something that I learned. I learned that everything is happening in the body, inside, in the internal. And while a lot of that is true, there can be times that it's coming from outside your in your energy field that's outside of your body. So you may not always be able to identify when true resonation is taking place within you. And I've learned that your heart has its own sort of energy field, and it's vast. And so feelings can originate from outside you because we have, and I know we all have different belief systems around this, but we do have a team sort of helping us. And so they can, however you want to see that, like guides or angels or ancestors or spirit or whatever is trying to communicate with us to teach us how, or to inform us when we are in these trigger states, how we can work with that emotion and let it inform our healing. So I'm a huge proponent of your senses, multisensory healing. Your sensory portals being your portal to power, your access to spirit, your access to your higher truth, your higher self, to God, universal source. So really it's about reading the vibrational frequencies that are sort of originating in you and not letting other vibrations outside of you impact you, other people's frequencies, other people's emotions. And that is the biggest piece right now, because on our planet, and you've heard a lot of the people I interview talk about this, we are in a really heightened awakening state on the earth. The earth is ridding itself of a lot of these false dichotomies. There's a lot of exposure happening. There's a lot of people experiencing really, really deep emotions, things that they have not accessed or had access to previously that are now coming to light within them. And that's one of the things that prompted this episode, because I just hear it so much. I see it so much, and I'm in it too. Our natural state is to experience high vibration feelings like peace, calmness, passion, joy, all of that. Our emotions come in to sabotage that. So when people say you can have positive emotions, that is true. And also most of our emotions are coming from messenger molecules that carry tons of information about our repressed memories. And some of them are ancestral. Some of them are not even ours. So we'll swallow them down because they're just so intense and so painful. And this is happening with children. I mean, it starts in childhood because children are picking up on the vibrations and frequencies of others, and they are also carrying it in their bodies because they're also carrying these generational messenger molecules, epigenetics, psychosomatic stuff. The biggest thing that I'm learning is to not make decisions in your life based or from a place of emotion. This is where systems are screwing us up, because there can be elevation emotion and there can be, heightened groupthink or the need to belong, which are beautiful in their own place. But a lot of times we become clouded to our own sovereignty because we pick up on the groupthink. And then we make these inferences or associations between, oh, this is true spirit because it's happening, everybody's aligned with this, and why don't I just jump on board? Your inner child is sort of the one running your emotional state. And it's like a baby crying inside of you, or a toddler that wants to be picked up and held, and all these unmet needs. It's constantly wanting affection and attention, and it's very, very immature. Lots of drama can ensue, lots of pain. Honestly, the way you deal with this is the way that you would deal with any child you love, any toddler that you love. If you think about children, they are completely free and honest in their emotional expression, right? They wear their hearts on their sleeves. They're totally open books. But we taught them to, and we had to teach them how to harness their really strong emotions that they were dealing with in their new bodies. And the thing is, a lot of well-meaning adults taught us that we needed to not express certain ways. And so we internalized this when we got older. And so we weren't as free in our emotional expression. A lot of things went unchecked. really things can escalate inside of us to the point where I don't have any way to express this. I used to throw a temper tantrum when I was a kid. I can't do that anymore. And so we get drowned and immersed in this drama pattern and these neural loops that are all about wanting attention. That is why children mostly act out. They want attention. That is why you and I act out. We want somebody to lovingly redirect us and validate our feelings. And to say, I see you, I hear you, I love you. That is what the immature, emotional, inner child kind of thing is playing out. That's what's happening. So the emotions of your children are super reactive because they just don't know what's happening in their physical world. All of a sudden, they've got to be exercising restraint. We're trying to set boundaries for them. The soul is unbounded. The soul is very present and very aligned. And it also expresses itself very freely and very openly. There's that middle ground between helping children learn to calibrate and balance their emotional state as well as ourselves and our own inner child that's been silenced, suppressed, punished, oppressed in all these ways, all throughout our upbringing, all throughout our years. I would say especially in our adult lives. We're still that inner child crying inside us to be seen, heard, validated, and loved. And we're looking outside of ourselves to get it. And it's creating more turmoil because we're not getting that validation. And we never will outside of ourselves. So don't judge or repress your emotions. It's part of what we signed up for as humans. It's showing us what's going on in our inner life. It's directing us to what we need to do to heal. And it's all about our happiness and evolution. So that inner little girl or inner little boy that's been lost and just needs somebody to hold his or her hand and pick them up and cradle them and talk to them and see them, that is the path of emotional alignment. The path of any way to heal is through love. The path of any way to change, if it's not based in love, it feels too punitive, you'll shut down. You won't shift. So we got to love ourselves back into this alignment and integrate that higher self. That presence behind it is just holding space for that authentic emotional expression and to see it and to observe it and honor it. And you guys know, when you keep wallowing and drowning in your emotions, you stay a victim. Nobody likes that word victim. I don't like it. If somebody really wants to trigger me, they just have to say, you're acting like a victim. Because I'm like, I work so hard to not be a victim, right? And we don't. We want to be mature. We want people to see that we're on this road of trying to become more conscious, but it's going to be so messy. And that's okay. So allowing the emotion to be what it is. Fully feel every aspect of it. The fight, flight, or freeze mechanisms that get triggered in your mind body feel like you're going to die if you stay in it. And that's why they want to fight through it or freeze or bail, right? Sitting with it and fully feeling it and being with it is different than wallowing in it or attaching to it or making it about you. It's just about being present, observing the emotion, not getting totally inflamed by it. People feel like if they really dive in and feel it and embrace that emotion, that's going to overpower them. But the truth is you actually neutralize its charge. I talk a lot about alchemy on this podcast, and soul alchemy is allowing your soul to observe what's happening within the body and showing you how to catalyze all these inflammatory responses. So you shift the vibration, you shift the energy of it, you shift the charge. What's beautiful about this is you can shift the DNA expression. You can shift your epigenetic patterns. You can do the work within your own body, which is your most important work in this whole world, is to do the work within your body. So the process looks like naming it, identifying the emotion as best you can, and really going within and being like, where am I feeling this in my body? Can I identify how it feels in my body? You're not looking at your environment. You're not looking at the person who triggered you or the situation or whatever that caused this reaction. You're going in immediately and saying, man, I'm really inflamed here. This is really radically like, kicking my butt. So identify it, name it. What is it? Then picture that inner child, because that's where the compassion comes in, because that's what's crying to be seen and heard. And you're not going to blame that child and be like, you know what, this is all your fault. that you're so charged up and I have to clean up all your messes, like a parent would say to a child sometimes. Just having that radical self-compassion and also the radical self-responsibility. This expression is happening within you and it has nothing to do with what's happening outside of you. What happened outside of you triggered it. But remember, you have one of two choices. You can just go within, breathe, see it, name it, allow its expression within you. Or you can go and react and stay in the trigger loop and shut down and be reactive and get all inflamed. And if that happens, there's no judgment. At some point, the more you do this, the more you just try to be that presence behind the emotional reaction, the more confident and strong you get in this process. And the more loving you are to yourself. So you're actually like reassuring that little inner child, picking up, loving it, guiding it. That strong emotion is going to dissipate. So you can feel it, right? Firing in you. You literally can. Your breathing becomes more rapid and shallow. Your heart rate increases. You become tense. And all of these are just messages to you that you need to start honoring that inner child. And I don't know. I recently heard a teacher talk about it, like, the analogy of this, or the metaphor really, is the scripture where Christ is saying, except as you become a little child, you can't enter into the kingdom of heaven. Think about it. The kingdom of heaven is within. You have a holy of holies within you. And until you, quote unquote, become as a little child, see that little child, you can't enter into rest. You can't enter into the, quote, kingdom of heaven or the holy of holies within yourself to claim your soul sovereignty and your connection to the divine and your purity and in essence and higher self. That will be veiled from you until you become as a little child, until you work with your little child. So I really loved that metaphor analogy of that scripture in this instance. So with consistency, you begin to see how everything happening on the outside world has very little to do with your emotions. Everything's always happening inside of you. And this is how you awaken. This is the process of awakening, turning inward and being like, okay, this is all happening within me. This is why it's been happening. This is how I'm feeling. Now I know, and now I can do it differently. Supporting yourself in this alchemy by looking and going within and identifying and validating and hearing and allowing what it is to be felt, breathing, staying conscious, sending love. This is how you transform. This is how you get back in alignment and experience everything that you actually want to feel and experience in your life. And it's liberating. It's liberating to give love and kindness to yourself. It's liberating to be like, oh, I have presence behind this. I can see this playing out like a train wreck. I'm fully aware that this emotion is here. I am so curious about what it wants to show me. I am so curious about where it's holding pain and tension and dissonance inside me. And I'm going to allow this process so that I can love myself even deeper. And it's very brave, you guys. It's very brave. This is very courageous stuff. This is I hate the word self-discipline, actually. I mean, I don't hate it. I guess it's just a triggering term for me because it's meant perfection in the past and self-mastery in a way that felt quite limiting. But in this respect, we're kind of moving into mastery over ego, mastery over the victim self. I'm learning a lot more about this victim role and how it's playing out planetary-wide. And so just wanted to share some of my thoughts today on staying conscious, the difference between feelings and emotions, how feelings can teach us and emotions can inform us, which are kind of different. The feelings are showing us the way out or through, or holding space and support and love with universal source energy, loving awareness, whereas the emotions are just reactions that are informing us of something that we need to look at and love into neutrality, into neutralizing in this inner alchemical process of transformation. So depression is something that I have studied up the wazoo for almost 30 years now. Many of you know my family history with this. Several siblings with bipolar, a sister who took her life, an aunt who took her life, lots of depression and suicidality and bipolar in my family lines for generations. I'll share a little bit more transparent about my own path with mental illness and how it's informed what I'm doing and how it's informed my awakening. And that will be in another episode. But I have had what is called dysthymia, which is in the DSM-3R, if you want to look. DSM, I don't know, whatever version of the diagnostic manual now that they use for psychiatric and psychological conditions, and how they categorize them and diagnose. But dysthymia is a very mild, chronic, low-grade depression. Most people who are dysthymic don't know they're dysthymic. That would have been me. It's been a great gift in my life for me to start lifting the layers, lifting the clouds, sorting through the distortions, looking at what's going on inside of me, and honestly going within and taking radical self-accountability for, hey, this may be what I inherited, or this might be epigenetic stuff going on, but I know that I can shift these patterns within me instead of trying to go outside of myself and fix it for everyone else and save my family or save my kids or whatever, save y'all. Let me just end with this. Spiritual alchemy is like your consciousness encircles the darkness with loving awareness. That's how you will shift the mind body. That's how you will heal yourself emotionally. When I'm talking about consciousness, I'm just talking about love. Because love is consciousness and consciousness is love. And it doesn't mean romantic love. It means, hey, I am unconditional in my regard for the sacredness of my own being and of all life. That place is the only place that heals. So I'm very intrigued with unearthing more and more to you and to myself, honestly, about how we can get really core with healing these family patterns like depression and anxiety that have lived in us for millennia. A lot of it is the suppression of our voice, the suppression of our knowing, the invalidation from our culture. You could call it the patriarchy, you could call it systemic abuse, but the invalidation of our own inner ability to be connected to Christ consciousness and the voice within that's just speaking so loudly for us to speak truth, to speak our knowing, to be with our own integrity and inner alignment, our own embodied way of being in our pure essence. That is what will heal the planet, that sovereignty, that inner authority, that inner empowerment, and that inner loving awareness and expression of love. When that really shines through and when that really comes through, that is what is going to heal all the mess we're in. So I'm with you on the journey. This is definitely something I'm in the middle of. And the reason I say it's an act of courage and act of love and all of that is because there is no greater love than doing this for yourself, period. Your whole reason for existence is to wake up to your own divinity, to continually be the presence behind all the humanness and lovingly allow it as an expression of the divine. So sometimes I can get pretty esoteric. I hope y'all are following me here. Just kind of shooting some stuff out, but I love that we get to move through this in this lifetime. This is a really powerful time to be on the earth. Stay true to you. Remember, this is all about being free, being whole, owning your emotions, taking that accountability, but also allowing for the humanness, allowing for the messiness, and loving what is. So look for some cool stuff in the next couple of months. I will be relaunching the Stand, Speak, Shine School. Stand, Speak, Shine School. Sometimes I say that too fast and everyone's like, what are you saying? But the Stand, Speak, Shine School, I am relaunching in 2022 with a beautiful new emphasis and energy on embodiment. It will be lower cost. It will be a really strong and beautiful invitation to your soul to allow the authentic expression to come out. Because that's what we're all craving. There's more to it, but it's about self-leadership. It's about self-mastery, but not to the extent that you're not allowing your humanness and messiness. And sometimes it just takes somebody to hold space and form and be the guide. You can't always see what you can't see. So stay tuned for more about that coming down the pike early 2022. Have a absolutely beautiful week, and we will talk to you next time on Women Seeking Wholeness.